All right, look, man, I'm really not interested.
What?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just not interested. I have a girlfriend, and it's just not my thing.
What are you talking about?
You keep staring over here like you want to take me out dancing.
Yeah, this is embarrassing.
Yeah, no worries, dude. Thought I'd let you know it's not for me.
No, I mean, it's your website.
What?
It's so nice. I've been trying to copy it over here.
Oh, here's the URL, man. Knock yourself out.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, sure.
You sure you're not interested?
Yeah, I knew you. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I know it's been a while since my last upload. I was on vacation in the Swiss Alps for some much needed R&R, bit of hiking, bit of lakeside. It was all really great. But I'm back, and today I want to talk to you guys about design portfolios again. A lot of you have been mentioning in the comments and writing me DMs that you're finding it really hard to come up with inspiration for your own portfolios. Trust me, I know the feeling. Staring at a blank canvas can be terrifying, and it's not that easy to find good sources of inspiration. And it's even harder to know what to actually look for if you're just starting out. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. My name's Leander. I'm a product designer based in London. If you've been following me for a while, you know that I'm a really strong advocate of copying design work that has already been produced. At the end of the day, there's really nothing new under the sun. Everything's a copy of a copy of a copy. And copying other people's work can be a really good way for us to get something down on paper so we're not just staring at a blank canvas, getting lost in our own heads and being stuck not actually knowing what we want to do at all. So today I wanted to go through 5 portfolios that I think are exceptional, all kind of in their own way, and talk about different ways that you can draw inspiration from each of them. So let's jump in. All right, the first portfolio we're going to look at is JK's portfolio. So the thing that I love about JK's portfolio is that it's not trying too hard. It's immediately clear what his focus is, which is web and mobile design. And there isn't any kind of crazy fluff to distract from what's important in the portfolio, which is his discipline, who he is. There's a nice little picture of him. And then when you scroll down, you immediately come to his case studies. And the work is, as we all know, the most important thing about everyone's portfolio. There's a couple of nice little bits of flair that I think you guys should draw inspiration from. In his little bio here on his home screen, you can see everywhere that he's been based, and he's crossed out the places that he's left. So he was first based in Lagos, and then in Dubai, and now he's in Manchester. I think that's kind of nice. Just shows people that you've been around and that you've traveled a little bit and that you've been based in different cities. The other thing that I think is very strong about this landing page is the contact me button is huge and it really draws the user's attention. Super easy to see. There's a nice bit of like flair shining around it. And I think if anybody is interested in working with him, they'll know exactly where to go and where to look. Scrolling down, the case studies that he has are the first thing that you see. There isn't any space for the user to get lost or go looking for his work. And what I really love about how he's presented his case studies is he's included these metrics. If you've watched any of my other videos, the one on my own portfolio, I talk quite a lot about how important it is to tie any kind of outcome metrics to the work that you've done, if you can. And in JK's portfolio, those metrics are right here. You don't even have to click into his case studies. And I think that's super, super strong. So he gives a nice little summary of what he actually did in this case study, which I think is also a great idea, right? The recruiter or the hiring manager, whoever's looking at this portfolio, doesn't even have to click into his work. Super scannable, really obvious what he did. So if we click into his case studies, it's immediately obvious what the work was, right? There's a nice little image here. It's all very scaled back. It's very minimalistic. And I really like that style. I think the work should really speak for itself. And if you over-design your case studies, they can just feel exhausting to go through and to read. I end up getting kind of lost in some case studies if they're over stylized. So I really appreciate JK's use of minimalistic style here. It's super obvious to see what he did, why he did it, and how he executed. And what he's done here that I love is he hasn't bombarded the user with too much information, right? He makes it immediately obvious what the project consisted of, the what, the why, and how. So I could just read that and I can already know what he did. And then if I want to go into more detail, if we scroll down a little bit more, he dives more into his research methods and how he conducted his interviews, motivations of his users, and then he talks about his design process. So I think this is really great. So that's JK. Nice job, Jay. Jumping into the next portfolio, we have another Jay Park. And you might notice a trend here. The portfolios that I've chosen are all very scaled back and are all very minimalistic. And you might be asking yourself why that is. I personally don't like overly designed portfolios. I think they're, first of all, much harder to make and make look good. And second of all, I actually think that they can really distract from what should be the focus. And that focus should be who you are and what work you've done. So Jay Park's portfolio is a stellar example of not doing too much. He's done something that's really fun and interactive, but in a very scaled back way. This animated bubble is really fun to look at, and how the interface designer title behind it kind of ebbs and flows with the motion of the water. Beyond that, there isn't really anything else here, right? And so the user's left with no other choice than to scroll down, and we immediately get to what he calls his craft. And this is just his work. His work, again, is presented in a very scaled back and minimalistic way. And it's super obvious what he did, but it's also a little bit mysterious, which I really like. This title that he's used for this mobile app design that he did, We're All Addicts Now. It sounds kind of intriguing. What do you mean we're all addicts? Addicted to what? And so actually giving the user something to be excited about and something that they want to click into, I think is a really creative way to present his work. And that's something that I haven't really seen anybody else do. His case studies are also very minimalistically designed. It actually reminds me quite a lot of Apple, the way that he's designed this portfolio. If we scroll down, something beautiful that he's done is he's added his table of contents here on the right side. So you see that there is an overview of his project, and then he dives deeper into his discover, empathize, ideate, prototype, and reflection phases. This gives whoever is looking at your work a chance to scan through the overview, and then if they want to dive deeper, they can. So kind of like JK's portfolio that we were just looking at, this one also does this very, very well. Just taking a quick scroll through his case study so you guys can see it. He doesn't over bombard the user with information, right? It's just a little block of text with a header. This is super digestible. It's really easy to see what his process was and what this project was about. His work is really nice and big. It's blown up, right? So I can see what he actually produced. And I really, really like this overview section that he's created. It gives me a chance just to scan through his work in like 60 seconds. And then if I find it interesting and if I want to learn more, I can scroll down to his Discover section and read through the rest of these chapters and really dive deeper. He dives much deeper into the research that he did and how he translated that research into empathizing with the user and then coming up with ideas for his project and then actually prototyping it and doing the design work. So I think this is a really good example of a portfolio. It's minimalistic, it's not overly designed, and it's super easy to scroll and scan through the work that is presented. Portfolio number 3 is Ramachandran. So what I really like about Ram's portfolio is that you can almost get a sense of his personality through his designs. He's posted some beautiful art that he clearly likes, and that gives us a little bit of a flavor of who he is and how he is as a person, right? And what he's interested in. He's used a very creative mixture of typeface for his header, which I think is cool. And the way that he has described himself down here in his tagline, I think is really creative and fun. So there's a little picture of him that's spinning around, and he talks about how he's been practicing for 4 years. And the 4 years isn't just spelled out, right? It's on another piece of art that he clearly likes. And then the work is the next thing that you see, which I think is very clever. And you might be noticing a trend here with these portfolios that I've chosen. There isn't a lot of fluff, and it's really, really quick for the user to scroll down and see the project work. So this is something that I would definitely weave into your own if you haven't already done that. The other thing that I think is really smart that Ram has done here is he has showcased his understanding of how important it is to give the user indicators of what they're supposed to do on a web page or in a product. And he's done that by making the cursor interactive. The cursor is actually telling me what I'm supposed to do. So right now it's telling me to scroll. And if I scroll down and I land on one of his projects, it changes to see project, right? So you might think this is kind of a small thing, but even just seeing that as a hiring manager would give me the impression that Ram understands how important it is to take the user's needs into consideration. And that already gives him a leg up over anyone that hasn't done this. If we click into his project, you can see another example of how considerate he's been for any kind of user that comes to his webpage. And he has created a little vocal demo where he talks over what he did in that project and how he did it. It's like a 30-second clip where he explains basically the work that he did in that project so the user doesn't have to read it. And I think that is just a really, really good example of showing that you're empathetic and that you take any kind of user's needs into consideration. Maybe I have a hard time reading. Maybe the typeface is too small for me. Maybe I just prefer listening to his voice rather than reading through his case studies. So I think this is really, really smart. Besides that, his case study is presented beautifully. It's very scaled back again, and he uses nice big visuals to demonstrate his product design. And he's also got bookmarks down at the bottom that I can click on if I just want to scan through. At the end of the day, UX and product design is all about understanding user problems and solving for those. I think Ram has done a really beautiful job using really small elements to indicate that he understands how important that is. And I would really encourage anybody watching this to try to weave some of these elements into their own portfolio. Portfolio number 4, Billy Sweeney. Now this one is on a similar vein to the first couple portfolios we looked at in that it's very scaled back, but something that Billy has done that I think is brilliant and that I would highly encourage you guys to try to do in your own portfolios is he's tailored his welcome message depending on the user that lands on his website. Like Ram's portfolio, This showcases that Billy understands how important it is to cater to users' needs, specific users' needs. So he has the general message that is for anybody, right? That just gives a general welcome and explains to people who he is and what he does. Then he's got one for recruiters that dives a little bit deeper into how much experience he has. He has a lot, and it shows. And he talks about that he does design across brand, product, right? So for a recruiter, this message is much more helpful than the general one. The one that I love in particular is the message that he's crafted for engineers. And if we click on this, you can see that it's already a little bit more techie. And he talks about how he's not an engineer, but he knows his way around and he can speak the lingo with other engineers. And he demonstrates that he knows a thing or two about coding by talking about how he built this site, and he links this site. And if you click on that, you're like, oh, what does that mean? Oh, it's actually this site that he's created, right? And this is just a really cool way of demonstrating to any engineer that might come on his portfolio that he's going to be able to work with them pretty well. And you might be asking, oh, why do I have to care if engineers look at my portfolio? I thought it was just hiring managers and recruiters. Yeah, maybe. But if you're in an interview process with a company and you're being hired as a product designer, you can be sure that there will be engineers interviewing you. They want to know that you know how to collaborate with them, that you understand their world, that you can step into their shoes, and that you're going to take them into consideration and not just spit out designs that are impossible for them to build. So this is actually a really important step. Something else that Billy does in his portfolio is he talks about his core design values, and I think this is actually a really nice touch. He uses the words useful, considered, beautiful, and well-made. And that might sound kind of generic, but then he dives a little bit deeper into what he actually means with these design values. It's actually a really nice insight into who he is as a designer, who he is as a person, and it kind of tells his story if you read through this. I'm going to link all the portfolios down in the description so you have a chance to go through them yourself. And I would encourage you guys to read this, and you can consider maybe weaving something like this into your own portfolio. And I think if obviously you have 15 years of experience, this probably carries a little bit more weight than if you have no years of experience. But including something like your design values, or even your personal values or your working values, I think it's a really nice touch, at least for me personally, when I'm reading somebody's portfolio. It shows me that they have thought about their messaging, and it gives me some insight into what it might be like to work with this person. And so I would take this away from Billy's portfolio and try to weave this into my own work in one way or another. The last portfolio we're going to look at is Rob Hopes. And this one's a little bit different. Rob isn't technically a product designer, and he's certainly not a junior product designer. He is actually a podcast host and a little bit more of an entrepreneur. But I just think the way that he's laid out these elements on the page are really nice. And again, quite scaled back. It's super easy to see the work that he's done with these nice big cards, right? So you can imagine that if this was your own portfolio and you just wanted to present your work, you could have a little intro line here. Maybe you weave in some of your values. Maybe you cater to the message depending on the user that is visiting your portfolio. And then you can just showcase your work immediately, right? In these nice big cards. So just an example of how you might weave this into your own work if you're just starting out and you're more junior. Rob has added quite a lot of nice touches here. So he also has a blog. I think this is a really nice way to present blog posts that he's done. So if you do any kind of writing work, maybe you create videos, maybe you have your own YouTube channel, showcasing that on your portfolio can be super, super powerful. And it gives a hiring manager or design manager insight into what you do in your spare time. It shows them that you're really interested, right? Showcasing anything else that you do that translates to this work, I think is very clever. And Rob has done that beautifully here. Another thing that I think is really smart that he's done is he's linked his socials in the upper right-hand corner here. So instead of having like a contact button, which to be honest is pretty outdated, nobody is going to use that contact button. They're much more interested in immediately jumping to your LinkedIn profile or your YouTube channel, maybe your Twitter, even Instagram. There are much faster ways to reach out to somebody than sending them a DM through their website. It just doesn't really happen that way anymore. And so putting your socials where everybody can see them in the upper right-hand corner, I think is a really smart way to get people to get in touch with you much faster. If you're curious about where I found these portfolios, I actually found them on a site that is called pafolios.com. It's a really cool website where they showcase one portfolio every day that they think is a stellar example of a design portfolio. And there are portfolios dating back, I think, a couple of years. So there's a lot of inspiration there. I'm going to post a link down in the description. They're not sponsoring this video or anything, but go ahead and click on it if you're curious to get some more inspiration for your design portfolios, and a link to the portfolios that I shared here in the description as well. So be sure to go take a look at those. Let me know in the comments if you found this useful. I'm happy to find some more inspiration that I can share with you guys and give you an impression of what is passable as a stellar design portfolio these days. As always, best of luck with everything that you're up to, and see you guys very soon.